What's going on, all you wild horror enthusiasts? It's your two favorite creeps over here. I'm Logan Myers. It's my good mate over there.
Henry Hill.
We're back talking American Horror Story, back for the 10th season that started out in 2011. Fast forward 10 years later into the newest setup and newest season of American Horror Story. Double feature. The first half, titled Red Tide, 6 episodes, and the second part, which is 4 episodes, is titled Death Valley, having to do with the desert. The first part having to do with like an oceanside town on the beach, and it takes place in Cape Cod, and really sets up a spooky atmosphere.
Really creepy atmosphere. First, we see the family traveling there in a nod to Stephen King's The Shining.
Yep.
We see Harry Gardner and his family, his wife, Doris, played by Lily Raby, and their young daughter, Alma. And as they're going along the road here, and it's setting the mood, they come across all these dead animals in the road. And the little girl, Alma, is counting them as they go along.
Yeah, they notice something really off-putting and unsettling early on with the deer carcass, and then it kind of gets pulled off the road, setting up the episode, and they end up renting out this really beautiful colonial-style home there in P-Town, Cape Cod, really famous, a lot of rich history there, and also where they filmed Jaws, the first film, but really known for its history. They talk about this in the episode where the Pilgrims, that's where they ended up settling. So there's a lot of history here. It's going to be kind of spooky and haunted, but they end up in this house. And Harry's a screenwriter. He's basically going to this house to write a pilot for a job as a screenwriter. So he's having writer's block. They end up going there to, relax. And so he can get this job done, the script done, and it sets up the rest of the episode. But much like Jack Torrance from The Shining, he starts to get a little mad and starts diving into the bottle booze and really just having trouble writing this, finding inspiration, trying to find quiet and peace. And his young daughter is always playing music and it's driving him nuts. So he's really struggling in this episode and trying to find inspiration to write.
We see him at the grocery store in the beginning, and we see some, one of the cast favorites of Ryan Murphy's shows, specifically American Horror Story, where she started, Sarah Paulson, playing this creepy ass, pale lady with really looks like she has Oreos all over her teeth. They're rotted. Apparently she's named Tuberculosis Karen around the town. And she sees him in the store and she's like, "Get the fuck away from here. Get out of here. They're going to munch on your balls." It's a really creepy scene in the grocery store when Harry's there at the store. So you get this really unsettling look at the town that they're in. Everything isn't as it seems. It's this seaside town. There's all these junkies. They see these bald people that look really creepy. They look like basically vampires. They're pale, moving really weird, and just really unsettling. So you have all these people in town that we see right away. So you know that something's definitely going on in this town. Not all is what it seems. And, eventually Harry ends up going to the local bar and he comes across a couple of other, Ryan Murphy favorites, Evan Peters, as well as Francis Conroy.
Yeah, they play Austin Summers and Bella Noir. They're also famous writers that Harry's character finds out about. He meets them at the bar. He sits down for a drink and they start talking and finding out, they come up to Cape Cod every year for 3 months. In the off season, there's like nobody in the town. And that's where they get inspiration to write these masterpieces. They're very famous writers in different ways. I think Austin, he was like writing plays or something like that. And then she writes books like New York Times bestseller, really great books. And he's kind of wondering how are they doing this? Just being in this atmosphere, being in this town, away from people. That's what they get inspired by to write. But we find out there's something deeper at play here, having to do with this black pill.
This special drug that apparently gives people the opportunity either to live up to their potential or to basically spiral out of control and become these like witless, pale, crazy looking people that we don't know if they're vampires or what exactly is going on, but we know this drug has the potential to unleash talents, but it comes at a high price. And that price that they have to pay is an insatiable lust. All their minerals in their body, all their nutrients are depleted, and they need to drink human blood in order to satiate this what they need to feed on in order to keep this going with this drug. And we don't really know what it is. We know there's a pharmacist that makes it. We meet her in the episode. We kind of find out a little bit about that. And so we know that Harry, when he's talking to Bella Noir and Evan Peters' character there at the bar, they offer him it. And at first he's reluctant and he doesn't do it. But as he goes home and he goes further into his writer's block and he isn't coming up with anything, his manager calls and asks him how he's doing. He's not doing too well. So he's like, well, might as well give this a shot. If it's going to do anything to help move this along and give me some inspiration, I'm going to try it. So he eventually does try the drug.
And he gets inspiration and he writes a masterpiece, as Austin Summers was saying, and Bella Noir's taking this pill. You become a different person. It's like you're on speed, you're not hungry. You're just like going at it. He writes all night. He comes up with, I think, like the entire season of the show. So it works to his advantage, but there's a price to pay, as we find out, having to do with those bloodsuckers that they thrive on the blood to continue to keep going. So they have to feed, and it really sets up a really interesting third act and really unsettling at the same time. The pale people were really great in this. It reminded me of like an X-Files or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, with those big creatures. I don't know what they're called back then, but it reminded me much of that, and it really brought a spooky atmosphere to American Horror Story we haven't seen in a long time. This seemed more polished for me, and the writing was a lot better, and there was actually something original and unique about it. So I'm glad they kind of went back to the roots here with the first and second episode. I thought they're really great. Really great character development, unique story, and also having nods to old horror flicks as well.
It was great seeing everybody that we've seen, in seasons past of American Horror Story, and some new players. We have Macaulay Culkin, of all people, coming in and lending his talents. We haven't seen him on the screen in quite some time, especially in something high profile like this. So it's really awesome to see him, and his character runs around with Sarah Paulson's character, so that we're going to get a lot of great scenes with the two of them and how they interact with Harry and his family. And yeah, Macaulay Culkin's playing like this, he basically looks like a drug addict. He's a male prostitute around the town.
Sex
worker. So him and Harry have a really interesting conversation in the beginning.
Rubbing dicks.
Rubbing dicks. There's a really funny line about rubbing dicks. He's kind of talking to him about that. So yeah, it's great to see Macaulay Culkin join the cast. We also see, who else do we see in this episode? We see Billy Lord as this dentist that once Harry takes the pills and he has this, bloodlust, basically. He wants to go in and he gets his teeth sharpened, gets them filed down into pointy edges so he can bite through flesh much easier. And we also get that really cool scene where he's blending up all those meats to try to satisfy the hunger he has. And he drinks all the liquid, bloody, goopy mess from the meat, which doesn't work. He finds out, it was really gross seeing him like take a big gulp and finish that off out of the blender. Really gross scene. So eventually he has to go out with Austin Summers and Belle Noir, and they sort of show him around the town. They see all these junkies late at night under the boardwalks and everything. So they go on a killing spree, basically, and they get their blood. They get their blood and they feast off of these junkies and people around town. So he finds some success after taking this pill, and everything's going great. His manager ends up calling him, and she's like, "Great news! Joaquin Phoenix is signed on for your project, and you're getting a deal with Netflix." So everything's really going great at first, but by the end of the second episode, something really terrible happens involving his family. That's gonna push us through to the last couple episodes of this first part of the double feature. I had a really great time with this episode, with both episodes, I should say. Both of these were a really great introduction to this Provincetown, Massachusetts, and Cape Cod here. It's a really unsettling, locale for this shoot, this seaside town. You see all these pale people. There's not a lot of sun. It's very, very cloudy there, very dark, very melancholy going on. And then, him running into Sarah Paulson, these pale people around town. Something's very off around this town. And right away, you find out what's kind of going on. And by the end of the second episode, it really ups the ante and involves his family. So it's going to be crazy seeing how this all plays out moving forward. I had a blast with American Horror Story Red Tide, the first part of the double feature. And I am going to give it the rating of 4 out of 5 Ryan Murphy hairpieces.
Yeah, I absolutely love the first 2 episodes. I watched them twice, like I was saying. That's how much I love this. I haven't seen a season American Horror Story in a very long time that I've actually, really loved and fell into the story early on. This series is known for starting really strong and kind of fizzles out in the middle. It doesn't know where it wants to go, right? Runs out of ideas. But I have a feeling this is going to be a well-written season. It's going to be fleshed out with better characters and original and uniqueness to it that is going to keep us coming back for more, especially in the first part, Red Tide. We have 4 more episodes of this debuting on FX and then Hulu the next day. So I'm really interested in seeing where the story goes, how it all ends, and what all these bloodsuckers end up doing. But I had a great time with this. Finn Wittrock, Lily Rabe, and Evan Peters, Francis Conroy, Macaulay Culkin, all really fantastic. Love the characters in this. All completely different characters and things I wouldn't expect. And I really had a great time with that. So with the first 2 episodes of double feature, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5 Ryan Murphy hair pieces.
What did you guys like about the show? Did you enjoy it as much as we did? What are your theories as to what's going to happen? Are these 2 stories going to somehow go together and fit together? And is it going to tie into the rest of the seasons? Are we going to see some past characters come into this like we've seen with the mythology of American Horror Story moving forward? Or is season 10 just going to completely reset things moving forward? And then from here, it's all going to tie into kind of these 2 couple stories to refresh the whole series. So we want to hear what you guys thought about the 2 episodes. We really had a great time with the show. We will be back. We'll go ahead and cover the rest of these episodes of Red Tide. We'll be back with our sort of, we'll do our wrap up of this part, and then we'll be back for the Death Valley premiere as well. And we'll also cover part of this double feature as well. So without further ado, these 2 ghouls need to go satiate our lust for blood. Until the next American Horror Story double feature review. I'm Uncle Henry Hill. That's my good mate, Logan Myers. Until next time, keep your fangs out. Cheers.
For once, make yourself useful. Grab me a beer while you're up.